secret of writing an awards paper is like doing any good writing. You need to think about your reader. So don't assume that they've got any technical knowledge about your specialist sector, and do assume that they've got not all that much time. And in the case of the judges, who I guess are the most important audience for you in the first instance, you've got to imagine that they have got a stack of papers on their desk that they're trying to work through and make it easy for them, or even at best entertain them and give them a little surprise along the way. I think it's really important that you choose the measures that are relate to your own campaign objectives. So there's not a one size fits all. There's a bit of a myth that all effectiveness papers have to have exactly the same metrics, but they don't, because of course not all campaigns are the same. Most people will have some form of campaign measures, awareness, interest in the advertising, persuasion and stuff like that. Then there'll be brand measures like consideration or brand awareness or brand image, and then there'll probably be behavioral measures like penetration, frequency, and then probably in a lot of categories there'll be commercial measures, revenue, share, profit, but of course there'll be different ones for the likes of a charity case study. My biggest bugbear when it comes to reading awards papers, and I think this goes for a lot of judges too, having spoken to lots of them over the years, is overclaim. So we know that obviously you're writing an awards paper, you've got to put your best case forward, and everyone understands that. But if you stretch it so far that you're claiming every single last result for this paper, and you're saying that it was you that was responsible for the entire transformation of the company and the share price rocketing and better employee retention and what have you, there might be elements of truth in all of those, but you've got to have an element of modesty. Because actually if you overclaim, or if it sounds like you're grandstanding, often it has the opposite effect and it puts judges off. I think it's really important to discount other factors honestly and candidly, because you're writing for a cynical to some degree audience. You're, especially for the judges, but also the ultimate readers, they're going to be people who understand that there are a lot of other factors in play, and they'll be thinking of them. So you can't hide them. You can't pretend those factors don't exist. You're much better to fess up to them, and in some cases acknowledge that yes, they did play a role, but you don't think that they played the main role, or that they played a role and it was an important role, but it was also accompanied by a very important role of the campaign. If you take all the factors and then just say all of them are completely irrelevant, and the only thing that made any difference was your advertising or your campaign, it just feels a little bit disingenuous and a little bit naive, if I'm honest. Sometimes it can take a little while to get to the meat of the story and to find out really whether the case study has merits or not. So one extra tip is to get your best evidence in up front. I mean, it's like writing anything. Authors are often told to, kick off with an absolute belter of a first sentence or a paragraph. So in this case, if you can start off very early on, probably literally even in the first paragraph, by saying why this is such a hard challenge, or why this is such an important case study, and then what a brilliant idea it was, and then an overview of a soundbite as to how strong the results were, then you've got the perfect beginning, middle and end of the story right up front, and then you can go on to elaborate on it afterwards. But the judges and the readers are already hooked and interested in wanting to find out more. Inevitably, the way that you write your paper does have an influence on how the reader processes it. I mean, it's only human nature. So that if you're a judge or a reader and you're finding it really boring or mildly irritating, or you're getting annoyed by various stylistic tics, then you're probably going to be a little bit less well disposed to the evidence, which is such a shame, if the evidence is really strong in its own right. So inevitably, like with all writing, the more easy you can make it on the reader, probably the more better disposed they will be to the data within. So my secret bit of advice would be to find yourself a killer chart. There's that old adage that a picture tells 1,000 words. And I think that's really the case in effectiveness papers. If you've got a graph that nails your whole story in a oneer, that's got 10 years of amazing sales results all going up in a row, or that shows that your campaign started and the minute it started, everything started shooting upwards, then that can be dynamite. That can be really persuasive for a judge and sort of frame the rest of your written paper with one image.